Let's hope my 0.01% female audience doesn't get pissed at me.
Think fast. You're behind cover and an active shooter is right in front, fleeing civilians all around. You notice a figure dashing next to you. Do you A. try to identify if it's a fleeing civilian, or B. panic and shoot?
First off, in this situation, you don't get that amount of time they just gave you. It's you just let them. If it's running, if they are running past you and you can see their hands, they're no threat. Should be no threat.
If you chose B, congratulations, you might be a female police officer. But let's confirm it. After
Damn,
panicking and shooting a civilian,
right off the
the
bat.
actual shooter advances. Do you A. hold your ground behind cover, or B. panic, run into the open, and get shot? If you chose B, it's confirmed. The scenario I just gave is from a recent event, where a female police officer successfully made every worst possible decision available. And it's reignited the conversation surrounding women in combat roles, specifically law enforcement. Therefore, in this
Damn,
video, I'll be ranking and debunking every argument in favor of women police officers. And if you enjoyed the video,
I'm about to get
consider
in trouble.
subscribing, it helps the channel. Women
Before we even get into this, it's already bringing up less force. Before we even get into this, there needs to be stricter requirements for women in the. When I would say active police force, I mean people that are actually out on patrol and look trying to like stop fights and stuff like that. You need to be at least 5'10, 160, 170 pounds. Because if you're not, a 5'8 man who's 120 pounds is probably going to beat the shit out of you. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just testosterone does a lot for the muscles. And men also have a monopolized power on brute force. It's not sexist, it's biology. I'm sorry. Now, I want to see what he means by women use less force, like what specific thing he's talking about. I don't know if he's talking about they don't use force as often or they just physically can't use more force because, again, testosterone thing,
use less force.
biology.
The argument here is that they are less prone to use excessive force when apprehending suspects, avoiding unnecessary harm, and saving on potential lawsuits. Proponents use studies showing that women are less likely to receive excessive force complaints compared to their male counterparts. To call this argument deceptive would be an understatement. Of course they use less force, they're less able to. Additionally, male police officers are typically the ones who are made
Well,
to
call that
handle
one.
more difficult physical arrests for obvious reasons. Since male officers are made to handle more difficult physical arrests, obviously they get
Okay.
more complaints.
That's a bit of
Naturally,
an
this goes into
exaggeration, but
NPC tier as a classic midwit argument. When a female officer is staring at a larger, non-compliant male, her options are reinforcements, taser, or gun. Which brings me to my next argument. Women are less likely to draw their gun.
I could see that being useful in situations, but explain, please.
This
Basic
argument
logic, I must
argues,
understand.
again citing studies, that female officers are less likely to draw their guns compared to male officers. Again, an obvious explanation is that men are being made to handle more difficult cases, which is a
Yeah.
demonstrable fact. These broad studies with poor
Yeah.
control over variables prove nothing. Furthermore, simple reasoning paints a different picture. A larger, non-compliant male poses an immediate risk to a woman in a way that it doesn't to a man. If a female officer feels threatened, her only recourse is her taser or gun, and tasers are not reliable tools. And
No, they're not. As I said, like, let's just say, for example, it's a 170, 180 pound man. He's 6 foot around. You probably need two tasers. Probably need two. And there's also a chance he might just be able to power through it. There's some people that tasers don't do shit to. They just walk straight through it. And that's people that aren't on drugs. They could just be adrenaline, which whatever. They thought it was drug, but it's human based drug, not something they took.
anecdotally, we see case after case of women feeling threatened and escalating drastically when it's either not necessary or wouldn't have been necessary for a male officer.
Doesn't it also kind of slightly disprove the previous statement of women don't draw their guns as often? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. It's just like a one-off example that's not probably doesn't happen that often. I hope.
Again, a failure of intuition and how to properly control variables. NPC tier. Women are better communicators.
You serious?
The argument cites the claim that women tend to rely on verbal skills more often for their arrests compared to their male counterparts. I'm tired of repeating myself, of course they are, since they struggle to physically restrain the suspect, and less compliant suspects are delegated. Abyss tier. Let's also address the root cause of these arguments. So far, they've all relied on an implicit sexist assumption that men lack self-control and
Yeah,
default
so I
to
thought
violence.
the whole point of adding women to the police force was for gender equality, making things less sexist. I just don't like when we argue with biology saying that biology is sexist because it's not, it's natural. It was here before we even had the idea of what sexism was.
Whereas women have more self-control. The studies we do have on this also don't support the idea of women being more in control. Women are twice as likely to suffer from anxiety or panic disorders as men are, as well as more likely to suffer from PTSD. Exactly
that.
what you don't want
Didn't know the
from
PTSD
police
one.
officers.
Yeah,
Proponents of
no,
this argument
no,
cite the
not
fact that
police
men are
officers
responsible.
or anyone that's in like a something that could form traumatic issues. Like, that's a lot of fucking jobs. That No, police officer is probably the worst one because it does deal with more crime related antics. Everything else is more one-on-one, like nurse, some firefighters, and stuff like that. Stuff along those lines. That's fine. I can see people having like anxiety issues, but there's also people that can just like shut that down and then work. Just kind of shut their anxiety down and get through it. Not good for you. Not good bottling all that shit up, but it does work. At least in that moment to get the job done. Doesn't work when you're being fired at by a force multiplier.
For more violence. But how do you control for the fact that men are simply more capable of violence or have greater incentives for it? Additionally, since men have this capability, a lot more effort is used in training them to control it since boyhood, a process that is often neglected on girls, which explains a lot of modern phenomena. NPC tier. Better results with victims. This argument makes the case that women typically get better results trying to get victims of abuse or similar crimes to open up. This is actually true, and it's one of the ways that women have genuinely contributed. And the best part? It doesn't require women to be police officers or in combat roles.
I said this in the very beginning. I said this in the very beginning. Like I think they can be in combat roles, but the testing and the requirements need to be higher. Just because of the physical difference between a man and a woman that are of the same size, or even if the woman's slightly bigger, the difference in their strength and the capability of what those two can do is drastically different.
They can be social workers, consultants, or other forms of outside help, so that their unique talents can be fully utilized without having to put their lives and others at risk by doing something they're not suited for. Flawed tier. Better community perception.
So far.
The claim here is that the
pretty good.
populace prefer and trust female officers more, which is highly debatable. Additionally, what happened to tearing down gender stereotypes? Public perception is just stereotyping. Why are we condemning stereotypes when it goes against
How the fuck? They're on two different sides. They put them on different sides for a reason. How the fuck would you mix up your goddamn taser with your force multiplier? Panic, yeah, the anxiety.
the agenda, but using them as an argument when it's in favor? This is clearly just a rationalization. It's already been decided women are to be police officers, and now they're just finding excuses for it. Abyss tier. Tasers negate physical disadvantages.
I've already talked about this.
Only
No,
the most
fuck
delusional
they don't.
deny the obvious physical differences between men and women, which is why we have such reduced standards for physical ability when admitting female officers. This begs the obvious question: why are we accepting subpar candidates just because of their gender? Their counter is physicality doesn't matter.
DEI.
The taser exists. Already, this is foolish. Chases, wrestling, takedowns are all part of the job. But even more importantly,
Yeah.
how reliable are tasers? Well, for starters, a portion of the population are just flat out immune to them.
There
The
you
ranged
go.
option is extremely limited, inaccurate, and hard to reload. And a taser is
Hmm.
often best used when already in a
During
melee
physical
altercation, which involves grappling and wrestling. Only an NPC can argue that physicality doesn't matter in law enforcement. Physicality is the only meaningful difference. Not only does this argument set aside a very important difference, this argument also contradicts earlier pro-women officer claims, as well as the statistics we have regarding likelihood of panic and anxiety disorders. And it goes deeper. Reaction
I was
time,
waiting for you to
spatial
bring up
awareness,
reaction time.
innate high.
Hold on. Before we even continue this part. Because you're going to talk about it, but I want to talk about myself a little bit too. Men have a faster refresh rate comparatively to a woman. That's the best way to describe it. That's not a good way to describe it. Our eyes are not, they're biological cameras. They don't work exactly like a normal camera. So frame rate's not the best way to say it, but I digress. We have a faster refresh rate. Our eyes are better at tracking moving objects at high speeds. That means we're able to map our environment better. Women's eyes are better at diversifying colors because they used to be the ones that would go through and pick out the ripe fruit from the unripe fruit. They would go through and pick out the poisonous berries from the non-poisonous, the ones that made you sick. They go through and pick out the proper herbs, and they would just. I can't think of anything else because that's like very old biology. We've not had enough time for something else to develop or for us to evolve something new. So that's like the only thing I could think of to distinguish those two. One was for hunting, the other one was for gathering.
Hierarchy are all things men outperform women in and are invaluable in combat roles. The belief that the only differences between the genders are physical is quintessential midwittery. NPC tier.
Yeah.
It's necessary for gender equality.
No.
This argues that even if the disadvantages of women in law enforcement and combat roles are conceded, it's still necessary in the name of gender equality.
But
The issue is,
it's just flat out dumb. It's costing people's lives. I don't understand.
if we need to accept worse performance and a higher risk to people's lives just to include women, then gender equality does not exist, whether you include them or not. You can call reality sexist all you want. It won't change to accommodate your sensibilities. But you will get people killed by denying it.
But that is what New Age feminism and that's basically it. Yeah, New Age feminism, which is kind of connected to the far left. Far left. I'm not saying all of them, but the far left are objectively not as intelligent as the rest of that section. Also, far right. Anyone that's on either sides, it's radical. They're both bad, in my opinion. Neither of them are good. But with this one specifically over here that's causing us more issues than the other, at least that we can see. There's probably stuff going on in the background that they have control over that we don't. Whatever. We're talking about police officers. We need not bring that up.
Abyss tier.
Stop.
Men-
Stop. Try to replace reality with what you want it to be, because that's not how reality works. Wish it was, because then we wouldn't have any issues in the world. Actually, would have way more issues in the world because no one could agree on what to do. No one could agree on what is best. They still can't.
Men and women are different, and if you can't accept that, that can't be blamed on just your stupidity. That's a choice, and one that's costing lives. That concludes the tier list. If there are any other arguments you would like to see ranked, please share them in the comments below.
He's basically covered. I don't know what else you could bring up. I don't know. Yeah, not much else. Not much else you can bring up. That's about it. That's literally like the only arguments that I've ever heard made about any of this, about women versus men being in the police force, or women being in the police force with men, at least in the combat role, as he described it, which I 100% agree with. They don't need to be in there unless we change the requirements. Raise them up. They need to be higher. He's like, "What? It's gonna let less women in?" Well, yeah, it will. It will let less women into a job they don't need to be in, and if they want to do it, another thing needs to happen. There's again, I know we're talking about police officers. We've got to stop telling children they can become whatever they want to be. We had to be more realistic with them because that's lying to them. And if you sit there and lie to them their whole life, when they get older, the world is going to slap them in the face hard. And it's not going to be fair for anyone.
And I would like to give a special thank you to all our channel members, our
Yeah.
patrons, and those who bought merch. We
Well, if you guys enjoyed How to Basic, ooh, not How to Basic, god damn. If you if you enjoyed Basic Logic's video, don't forget to go look at his channel, give him subscribe, like his video, comment on his stuff, and if you liked my input, go ahead and subscribe, give me a like and comment. That's about it. I'll see you guys in the next one.